Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Fantastic to be here at this event, and credit to the Federal Resources Minister for making the journey up to this part of the world as well. It's fantastic to see policymakers really, accelerating the push for critical minerals projects and growth of that industry. So Chalice, as it says here, our Julimar nickel copper PGE project is really a well-timed new large-scale discovery in Western Australia, and I'll take you through the history and some details on that project now. The usual forward-looking statements, these disclosures are available on our website or on the ASX platform if you wish to read these. So who is Chalice? Chalice Mining is an ASX 200, now globally recognised name in exploration. We have a very sizable team of exploration geologists who have quite an incredible track record. We've got a very high performance, results-driven company culture, and our purpose, as it says there, is to really address the need for and the demand that's coming for these future-facing commodities like nickel, copper, cobalt. And that is, really the challenge is actually finding the metal, not just building the mines. The mines actually build themselves largely. It's actually that the hard bit is actually finding the metal in the ground. So our aspiration, as it says there, is to, given what we've found in Julimar, is now to create a world-class multi-district green metals province in Western Australia. So here's our board of directors, some of our recent achievements, as it says there, about 4,000% return to shareholders since the discovery, so it's been a fantastic few years for Chalice shareholders. Our market cap today about 2.8 billion Australian dollars. We've got a well-financed company. We have just under $100 million at the end of last year. We've got some very serious institutional investors on our register now. So BlackRock, the mining fund in the UK, as well as predominantly a number of Middle East sovereign wealth officers and large US institutions. And we are starting to, capture the attention of the market in terms of research as well. Last week, we updated the market with some revised numbers for the Julimar resource. So as it says, this is a major new polymetallic critical minerals project in Western Australia. So what better place in the world to find a major new source of these metals? As you can see on the map on the right-hand side, the project is just outside of Perth, about an hour and 15 minutes drive. So quite unbelievable that it took until 2020 to recognise this. You would think that every day of the week this would have been found in the 1960s, maybe the 1950s even. But we were fortunate to apply a completely new mineral systems approach to this area. And as you can see there, now we have a 560 million tonne resource at approximately 0.5% nickel equivalent. It is slightly unique in that it is a nickel sulfide or magmatic nickel sulfide deposit, but it's very rich in byproducts like palladium, cobalt, copper. As you can see, there's 16 million ounces of contained platinum group metals, 860,000 tonnes of nickel, 520,000 tonnes of copper and 83,000 tonnes of cobalt. Makes it a very significant mineral system, but what's even more important here is that we have just, really sort of scratched the surface. We've got a 30-kilometre long newly recognised intrusive complex, so that resource number is going to continue to grow over the coming years. It also has some very high-grade material within it, so the core of the system, as you can see, there's 120 million tonnes at almost 1% nickel equivalent, and that extends down to depths of 800 metres. We have actually already intersected mineralisation, though, down at 1,100 metres, and it's still wide open. So this is a strategic asset for Western Australia and indeed the nation. It's a very rare mix of commodities. Obviously, the PGEs are predominantly produced in South Africa and Russia. Australia has negligible current production, but the world is also very hungry for new sources of Class 1 nickel in particular. These are essential metals for decarbonisation and a range of technologies. We own 100% of the project, so we're really in the driver's seat. We've also got 8,000 square kilometres of surrounding tenure in a completely unexplored area. So this is a sort of once-in-a-generation type of exploration opportunity. we have a sufficiently large resource there that we're progressing that to a development as quickly as we can, and we are just now launching a formal strategic partnering process, which I'll mention as well. And given the location here, it's safe to say that we have access to some of the best quality infrastructure anywhere in the world on the outskirts of a city of approximately 2 million people. So I mentioned it's a strategic asset. You can see some of where these metals come from. Nickel and palladium is really a story in the case of nickel, Indonesia and the Philippines, but also Russia is one of the largest producers, particularly of Class 1 nickel, and Russia produces 40% almost of the world's palladium. So that is a very challenging situation for Western supply chains. You've heard the Federal Resources Minister speaking about the commitment that the Australian government has made to support projects like this. There's over $1 billion of taxpayer funds allocated to support projects like Julimar, and we're certainly getting lots of strategic interest from all players across the entire industry right now. These metals are critical. I don't need to mention this in too much detail, but safe to say nickel and cobalt are some of the higher profile metals at the moment used across a range of technologies, as you can see on the right there. I think platinum and palladium are probably some metals that aren't as well appreciated in terms of their green credentials. Palladium and platinum have been essentially doing the heavy lifting in terms of pollution mitigation over the course of the last 60 years. They've been used in catalytic converters, and they've really cleaned a lot of the major cities around the planet. Those are very critical metals because of just how concentrated the supply is in places like South Africa and Russia. So to find a new large-scale deposit of PGMs outside of those countries is very significant. Speaking to the resource update we made last week, as you can see there, the new numbers contained 3 million tonnes of nickel equivalent within the resource. That's a growth of 50% from the numbers only 9 months ago. So you can see the value we're adding from very wide-spaced step-out drilling is adding a considerable amount of resource continually. Approximately 260 new drill holes were added to the resource. The resource is based on 1,000 drill holes, or approximately 280 kilometres of drilling. We've also, increased the open pit category resource, and that's predominantly been through drilling at the northern end of the deposit. We have actually been able to reduce the cut-off grade reported as well, just using some tweaks based on recent metallurgical test work. But really, we are still working on the flow sheet, so there is quite a lot of upside to the recoveries that we're seeing to date, and that work has not yet been incorporated into the economic constraints around the resource. We're also seeing that after a significant sized open pit resource, below that open pit resource we have a growing underground category resource, and that, as I said, is wide open. So this is an image of the block model, the resource. It's contained within a singular 2-kilometre strike length conceptual open pit. The deepest resource block, as you can see there, is at about 800 metres below surface, but you can see the open arrows there. This is still a very much work in progress number. It is entirely on our own farmland as well. We've acquired about 23 square kilometres of farmland, so we own the freehold title as well as the mineral rights to the resource, and it's a very low strip ratio in that pit, which was predicted as well from the modelling. The high grade part of this system as well, as I said, 120 million tonnes within that global resource number, and that's where, if you strip away blocks lower than 0.6% nickel equivalent, there's still about 10 million ounces of equivalent palladium in just the high grade part of this system. So this is, as you can see there as well, down the bottom left hand side, that's the 1,100 metre deep drill hole that I mentioned, where at the base of that drill hole we're intersecting 32 metres at 1% nickel equivalent, and that's about 600 metres beyond the block model. So as you can see, lots more work to do, and that this resource will continue to grow significantly. To put the current numbers in context, though, this is now already the second largest on a purely nickel basis. This is the second largest nickel resource or undeveloped nickel resource in Australia. But if you put it in equivalent nickel terms, so if you add all the byproduct credits together, it is now quite clearly the biggest undeveloped magmatic sulfide deposit in the country. And as you can see, we're in very good company there with Oz Minerals obviously now is under offer from BHP, so there is a high degree of appetite from all players in the sector right now to acquire assets like this. The deposit remains open down dip. This purple shape here, this is the host intrusion, the Gonville intrusion. This is approximately 500 to 600 metres true thickness, predominantly ultramafic unit, and it is effectively mineralised from top to bottom. So normally in the goldfields, you'd be fortunate if you saw sort of 3 to 10 metre wide ultramafic units. Very unusual to see something 500 plus metres thick. And as you can see there, we have approximately 1.6 kilometres of down plunge, down dip extent to continue drilling off before we, I guess, have actually constrained the resource and what we think is, according to 2D seismic, the intrusion does terminate there at a depth of about 1.5 kilometres. But there's actually no guarantee, and we haven't yet drilled that deep. So we're continuing to drill on the resource with 2 drill rigs and on very wide-spaced centres now. So those drill holes will add considerable tonnes in each and every one of those. But what's, I guess, most exciting here on this project is that about 6 to 10 kilometres north of the current resource, which is down the bottom of that map on the left-hand side there, you can see the outline of the pit shell and the outline of the Gonville intrusion there. As we go north along the strike length, we're getting indications of mineralisation up to 10 kilometres further north. So what we've got here is a very significant magmatic system. Looks like, in terms of character, has a lot of similarities to the Norilsk-Talnak system in Russia, the Jinchuan system in China. So really, we are drilling along this complex to find where these pockets of high-grade mineralisation exist along there. As you can see along that Hooley prospect there, we've had some fantastic recent results. So what we're intersecting up there is exactly the same geology, exactly the same mineralogy and mineralisation there along approximately 5 kilometres of strike length, but that is itself open to the north as well. So we have 4 rigs drilling along the complex. We've applied for an additional permit to continue that work, and we expect to get that around about the middle of the year, at which point we will scale up our exploration activities again considerably. So the belt in its entirety is not just 10 kilometres. I guess we know there's mineralisation over at least 10 kilometres, but the belt, according to the geophysics and the soil sampling and the regional work we've done, we know it's a 30-kilometre stretch of mafic, ultramafic rocks. So these are sort of what dreams are made of for exploration geologists to be able to drill something like this for the first time. Everything north of the Dampier area there is completely undrilled thus far. So as I said, around the middle of this year, we will be increasing our exploration activities considerably and really testing those areas north there for the very first time. It's worth noting as well that a company that we're a strategic investor in, Caspian Resources, also have indications of mineralisation up to 50 kilometres away from our resource. So this is a very large-scale mineral system, and one that is no doubt going to deliver something truly world-class. In terms of how we process this material, we have done a lot of work experimenting on potential flow sheets here over the course of the last 3 years, really since the discovery hole. We think that the obvious solution here is to produce a copper PGM concentrate. We're very fortunate that most of the PGMs float with the copper, and we can recover those and get very good payabilities from copper smelters selling products to them. And then we're looking at some hydrometallurgy options. We're looking at multiple different technologies in the midstream space to process the nickel cobalt into a mixed hydroxide precipitate. And that's a very attractive product for the battery industry and the precursor cathode active manufacturers. So we're looking into options on that side, and we're continuing to do test work. We also have a few things in relation to grind size, as well as potential leaching of flotation tails that we're also looking in. Really, the flotation tails leaching options are one of the more attractive looking options here, because we can really increase the PGM recoveries. So we are doing development studies. Those are very much underway, but we're also speaking to a range of potential strategic partners here for this asset to come alongside us. So really it's a dual strategy for this project. We are in active discussions now with a range of strategic partners. We expect to close a transaction during this calendar year. We are advancing development studies really centred around the flow sheet and just confirming, I guess, the preferred flow sheet. And then towards the end of calendar year 23, we will be starting the regulatory approvals process. But worth noting that outside of Julimar, like I said, we have 8,000 square kilometres of unexplored tenure, and it is now, I guess, the one of the most attractive projects in the world for new nickel sulfide discoveries. So as well as what we're doing on the technical side, obviously, we're working very closely with the community and the traditional owners at Julimar. We've got a very significant contribution already into local communities there, and we've committed to a no net loss biodiversity goal on the project. So that's going to be achieved through those three things mentioned there. Connectivity, we are looking to establish new biodiversity corridors, restore some areas that have been degraded, and then try and regenerate the soils for the purpose of carbon sequestration as well. So really, I guess, like I said, this Julimar discovery is much more significant than what the current resource that we've defined. If you look on the map there on the right-hand side, you can see all the nickel deposits that have been found there. The first one was found in approximately the mid-1960s. And since then, over the course of the approximately 60 years, there's been 25 million tonnes of nickel found in that area. And the difference here is that in 2020, the first one was found on the western side of the Yilgarn Craton, and we know that the edges of Archean cratons are the place to go exploring for giant magmatic systems. So as you can see, the orange areas there is Chalice, largely 100% owned tenure, approximately 8,000 square kilometres under licence. We have a team of approximately 45 geologists that are combing over the entirety of that land package at the moment. And what we expect, I guess, is expect the unexpected. There is the potential here for a whole range of unrecognised geologies, like magmatic systems, mafic, ultramafic, intrusive complexes, but also greenstone belts where we're keeping our eyes open for potential lithium bearing pegmatites. But what's clear in these systems is that to find them is actually very low cost. So we spent in the order of approximately 50,000 Australian dollars before drilling the discovery hole at Julimar. So we have hundreds of opportunities like that to find more and more Julimar-like systems across what is approximately 1,200 kilometres of the edge of the western edge of the Craton margin. And what we know is that Julimar as a mineral system is capable of delivering very high grade. The sulfide tenor of Julimar is very exceptional, approximately 3.2% nickel, 1.2% copper, and 10 grams per tonne PGMs. So obviously the prize is finding more of that sort of material, and that is what's driving us in a very, very extensive regional exploration program that's ongoing at the moment. Just to wrap up, I think as I presented this to the PDAC in Toronto a few weeks ago, and I think if you look at this chart of base metal discoveries, the 1960s, 1970s boom was quite phenomenal. And really, since then, since the rise of China and the 11-fold increase in exploration expenditure over the last sort of 20 years, there's been a huge drop in exploration expenditure at the worst possible time. And since 2015, there's only been 7 giant base metal discoveries. If you look at the run rate back in the 1960s, 1970s, we were discovering 5, 6, even 10 of these giant systems per year. And now, in the last 8 years, we've only found 7. So this is really the problem for the decarbonisation thematic, is that it really rests on actually exploring and finding the metal required. So to summarise, we have a world-class asset there in Julimar. This is a photo of it, of the project on the right-hand side. We've got an exceptional team with a track record of making world-class discoveries, and we're very excited to continue to exploit the exploration upside in the new West Yilgarn province. So please come and have a chat at the booth if you'd like to learn more. Thank you.